Budapest is located along the banks of the Danube River. Here, the Danube exits the mountainous regions of central Hungary and flows into the Hungarian Great Plain. Geologically, Budapest is situated on a fault line, which is why the city has numerous thermal springs. While it's widely known that Budapest was formed by the merger of Buda and Pest, it actually consists of 3 cities. The third one is Óbuda, now part of District 3, and is the origin of Budapest's history. Archaeological findings show that the earliest human settlements in this area can be dated back to the Neolithic period. More tribes moved to this fertile land during the Bronze and Iron Ages, migrating and establishing communities here. Aravisi, a branch of the Celtic people, arrived in the area around the 3rd to 4th centuries BCE. Unlike other contemporary Celtic tribes, the Aravisi had developed a highly cultured society. They worked with iron, made jewelry and pottery, and even minted their own silver coins. Their settlement was in Óbuda and was named Aquincum, meaning abundant water in Celtic, because of the nearby thermal springs. In the 1st century CE, the Romans conquered and incorporated the Aravisi. Their settlement in Óbuda became a Roman legion camp called Aquincum. On the opposite bank of the Danube, in what later became Pest, the Romans established a fortified camp called Contra Aquincum to defend the river crossing. These military installations became crucial parts of the Roman Empire's border defense in Lower Pannonia, protecting against the Iazyges to the east and the Vandals to the northeast. Initially, a cavalry unit of 500 men was stationed here. Around 89 CE, the Roman Second Auxiliary Legion, consisting of 6,000 soldiers, began to garrison Aquincum. The establishment of the military camp had attracted many civilians, and the fertile land and strategic location at the Danube crossing facilitated Aquincum's growth. In 106 CE, Emperor Trajan, one of the 5 good emperors of Rome, designated Aquincum as the capital of Lower Pannonia. The governors included Hadrian, who later became emperor. He built his palace on an island near Óbuda, now known as Shipyard Island. As the provincial capital, Aquincum was granted full Roman rights, and residents could enjoy amenities such as heated floors, public baths, and an amphitheater. Under Roman administration, the city flourished and became a center for commerce, military, and religious activities in Lower Pannonia, attracting a mix of Roman, Celtic, Pannonian, and other nearby cultures. In 124 CE, Emperor Hadrian designated Aquincum as a municipium. In 194 CE, the city was further upgraded to a colonia. Roman soldiers, upon retirement, were granted land in the colonies. They would marry local women and have children, further promoting the Romanization of the colony. During the Marcomannic Wars in the mid-2nd century CE, the city suffered significant damage. However, through extensive public infrastructure projects, Aquincum regained its former prosperity. These projects included the construction of an amphitheater in the northwest of the city and a 5-kilometer-long aqueduct. Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome, began writing his Meditations, with some chapters likely penned in Aquincum during this time. Today, the Aquincum Museum in Óbuda allows visitors to explore the ruins of this Roman city. People can closely examine Roman relics, including the military and civil amphitheaters, the aqueduct, and the Mithraeum Temple, quietly experiencing the former glory of Roman civilization in Budapest. As the Roman Empire declined, the legions withdrew from Aquincum and local population dwindled. When the Huns arrived in the early 5th century, they found the city abandoned. According to legend, the great city of the Huns was located in a place called Buda, named after Bleda, the brother of Attila, also known as the Scourge of God. The people who settled in Budapest after the Huns were the Avars. In 557 CE, the Avars made an agreement with the aging Byzantine Emperor Justinian, the first to subjugate unruly tribes along the border in exchange for gold. By 580 CE, the Avar Khaganate had established control over most Slavic, Germanic, and Bulgar tribes in Pannonia. Vast lands, including Budapest, became part of the Khaganate. In 796 CE, Pepin, son of Charlemagne, led the Frankish army to defeat the Avars, weakening their influence in Europe. This victory set off a power struggle over Pannonia, with the Franks, Bulgarians, and Slavs, each vying for control. By this time, the Western Roman Empire had been defunct for over 3 centuries. As time passed, the ancestors of modern Hungarians, the Magyars, emerged on the historical stage. According to Byzantine records, the Magyars were composed of 7 tribes. In present-day Budapest's Heroes Square, a statue depicting 7 horsemen represents the 7 chieftains of the Magyars who led their people over the Carpathian Mountains, conquering the Pannonian Basin. At the forefront of this statue is Arpad, regarded as the founding father of the Hungarian nation. According to the earliest Hungarian historical record, the Gesta Hungarorum, Arpad led his people into the city of King Attila, marveling at its stone buildings and ruins, feeling proud and fortunate. This city is generally believed to be Aquincum, modern-day Budapest. This narrative strengthens the connection between Arpad and his descendants with Attila, providing the Magyars' new homeland with a sense of sacred historical legitimacy. Under Arpad's leadership, the Magyars established the Principality of Hungary in 896, the first sovereign state on the Pannonian Basin. This event marked a new chapter in Budapest's history, integrating it into the Hungarian territory. Over the next 100 years, the Magyars swept across much of Europe, raiding large parts of present-day Italy, Germany, and France, reaching as far west as the Atlantic Ocean. In 927, they even entered the city of Rome, exacting significant tribute from nearby city-states like Tuscany and Carantania. In the east, the Magyars advanced to the walls of Constantinople, forcing the Byzantine Empire to pay 15 years of tribute. In 955, King Otto I of East Francia defeated the Magyars at the Second Battle of Lechfeld, halting their incursions into Western Europe. This victory also facilitated the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire 7 years later, defining a new political order in Western Europe. As the first millennium approached under the leadership of the Principality of Hungary's last Grand Prince, Stephen I, the Magyars converted to Christianity, transitioning from a nomadic lifestyle to settled agriculture. They began building villages and towns, engaging actively in agricultural production. In 1000, Stephen I founded the Kingdom of Hungary, strengthening central authority and legal systems, promoting political and social stability, and enhancing the region's economic and security levels. Over time, the marauding Magyars vanished from historical records, replaced by a new nation, the Hungarians, who became known as the Shield of Christianity, protecting Eastern Europe. In 1015, King Stephen I ordered the construction of a Catholic church in Buda, known today as Matthias Church, located in the heart of Budapest. This church has stood for 1,000 years, undergoing multiple destructions, reconstructions, and major repairs, bearing witness to Budapest's near-millennial history. Its style evolved from its original Romanesque to the current late Gothic. In 1083, 45 years after King Stephen I's death, the Pope canonized him in recognition of his efforts in Christianizing Hungary. St. Stephen's Basilica in Budapest still houses Stephen I's Holy Right Hand. Each year, on August 20th, the Holy Right Hand is taken out for a grand procession. This event is part of the St. Stephen's Day celebrations, one of Hungary's most important national holidays. In the Middle Ages, Budapest flourished as a hub of numerous trade routes, attracting many crusaders and pilgrims heading east. Merchants, craftsmen, and intellectuals from across the European continent fostered unprecedented cultural exchange and intellectual prosperity. This golden age lasted over 200 years until the Mongols appeared on Budapest's eastern horizon, bringing with them clouds of dust. In 1241, at the Tisza River, 180 kilometers northeast of Budapest, Bata Khan and Subutai led the Mongol army to decisively defeat the Hungarian forces, which were twice their number. King Bela IV of Hungary fled to Vienna, Austria, seeking refuge, while the Mongol army captured Buda and Pest, plundering and burning the cities to the ground. After the Mongols retreated, the resilient Hungarian people quickly rebuilt their cities. Buda and Pest rose from the ashes like a phoenix, each developing unique characteristics. Following the Mongol invasion, King Bela IV returned to Buda and fortified the city, transforming it into a stronghold. Meanwhile, across the Danube River, he emphasized the commercial development of Pest. In 1247, having learned from past failures, King Bela IV realized that the plains were difficult to defend and needed a strategically located castle to prepare for future Mongol invasions. He built Buda Castle on Castle Hill, the highest point in Buda. For the next 200 years, Buda became the capital of the Kingdom of Hungary. Buda Castle witnessed the reigns of multiple Hungarian kings, enduring numerous conflicts and damages despite the Mongols never returning. Over the centuries, with various kings' repairs, modifications, and expansions, the architectural style of Buda Castle evolved significantly. When the Renaissance movement spread to Hungary, Buda Castle style transformed from its original Gothic to Renaissance. In 1476, Hungarian King Matthias Corvinus married Beatrice of Naples. Along with the princess came the influence of Italian humanism, as well as a wave of artists and craftsmen. Buda Castle was reconstructed in the early Renaissance style, and within it was established the renowned Bibliotheca Corviniana, one of the most famous libraries of the Renaissance era in Europe. Matthias Corvinus ascended to the Hungarian throne at the age of 13 and reigned for 32 years. During his reign, he expanded his influence through military and diplomatic means, becoming King of Bohemia and Duke of Austria. In 1485, Matthias Corvinus defeated Holy Roman Emperor Frederick III and occupied Vienna, elevating Hungary's status in Europe and bringing the Bibliotheca Corviniana to its zenith. The library boasted a team of professional archivists, scribes, translators, bookbinders, and manuscript decorators, as well as an extensive agent network across the European continent. The Bibliotheca Corviniana became the second largest library in Europe, second only to the Vatican Apostolic Library. During this period, Buda had a population of 5,000 and published Hungary's first printed book, making it a true center of the Renaissance north of the Alps. By the time of King Matthias's death in 1490, the library housed 3,000 handwritten volumes containing 4,000 to 5,000 works on philosophy, theology, history, law, literature, geography, natural sciences, medicine, and architecture, many of which were classical Greek and Latin texts. Throughout his life, Matthias Corvinus defeated many enemies, including repeatedly repelling the rising Ottoman Empire and imprisoning Vlad the Impaler, forcing him to convert to Catholicism. However, without a legitimate heir, Matthias's dynasty ended with his death. The Kingdom of Hungary was then inherited by Vladislaus II, the King of Bohemia, through complex familial ties. In 1491, Vladislaus II signed the Treaty of Karlowitz with Maximilian I of the Holy Roman Empire, relinquishing claims to Lower Austria and acknowledging that, without a legitimate male heir, Maximilian would inherit the Hungarian throne. Although Vladislaus successfully fathered a son in Budapest in 1506, who would later become Louis II of Hungary, upon Vladislaus' death in 1516, leaving the 10-year-old Louis was placed under the guardianship of Maximilian in accordance with his father's alliance agreement. In 1525, 19-year-old Louis married Maximilian's 11-year-old granddaughter, Mary, further consolidating their alliance. A year later, in 1526, to break the nascent alliance between the Kingdom of Hungary and the Habsburg, the Ottoman Empire launched an invasion of Hungary. The 20-year-old King Louis led his forces against Suleiman the Magnificent's Ottoman army, but was defeated at the Battle of Mohacs. During his retreat from the battlefield, he drowned while attempting to cross a river. The Ottoman army then captured Budapest, devastating the Bibliotheca Corviniana. Most of its 3,000 manuscripts were destroyed, some were taken to Istanbul, and only about 216 survived. Nowadays, these surviving manuscripts are preserved in several libraries in Hungary and Europe. In 1541, after 15 years of conflict and chaos, the Ottoman Empire completely conquered Budapest, integrating it into the empire. They made Buda the main military and administrative center in Hungary and the residence of the governor. Most churches in the city were destroyed, but the famous Matthias Church was converted into a mosque, with its ornate frescoes plastered over. Ottoman rule in Budapest lasted over 150 years, leaving a unique historical and cultural legacy. During this time, the Turks improved the city's infrastructure, including building roads, bridges, and markets, making Budapest an important center of East-West cultural exchange. Turkish culture and art profoundly influenced Budapest's architecture, decoration, and cuisine, enriching its cultural heritage. One significant contribution was the flourishing of thermal baths in Budapest. Utilizing the city's abundant natural hot springs, the Ottomans built a series of public baths, providing essential amenities for residents and becoming crucial cultural and social hubs. The Rudas baths, established in 1550, and the Karali baths, established in 1566, still offer solace and tranquility today, serving as enduring symbols of the city's rich history. During their more than 100-year occupation of Budapest, the Ottoman Empire reached the peak of its European expansion. However, their defeat at the Battle of Vienna in 1683 marked the beginning of a shift from expansion to defense. In March 1684, under the leadership of Pope Innocent XI, the Papal States, Holy Roman Empire, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and Republic of Venice formed the Holy League to combat the Ottoman Empire. 2 years later, Tsarist Russia also joined the Holy League. In May 1684, a Holy League army of 34,000 soldiers set out to recapture Budapest from the Turks. After a 109-day siege, the first siege of Buda ended in failure for the Holy League, and Budapest suffered extensive damage. Before retreating, the Turks set fire to Pest, and the Holy League's forces looted Buda upon entering the city. In 1686, the Holy League organized a larger army of 74,000 soldiers, double the size of their previous attempt. During the siege of Buda, a cannonball struck the Matthias Church, which had been converted into a mosque. The impact caused a wall to collapse, uncovering a hidden statue of the Virgin Mary. When the statue appeared before the praying Muslims, the Ottoman defenders' morale crumbled, and the city fell that same day. This event is known as the Marian Miracle of Buda. Following this, Catholic forces recaptured most of the original Hungarian territories. Finally, in 1699, the Treaty of Karlowitz was signed, officially ending Ottoman rule in Budapest. By then, 183 years had passed since the death of Ladislaus II, and the Habsburg finally integrated Budapest and Hungary into their domain. Although Budapest was liberated from Turkish rule, the Habsburgs still represented a foreign power to Budapest and Hungary. From 1703 to 1711, the War of Independence led by Hungarian national hero Rákóczi was the first major attempt to overthrow Habsburg rule in Hungary. Despite the uprising's failure, Austria recognized some powers of the Hungarian nobility in exchange for their acceptance of Habsburg rule. This compromise temporarily eased tensions between Hungary and the Habsburgs, bringing a period of peace to Budapest. During this time, the city saw significant economic, architectural, and cultural development. However, this progress and the awakening of nationalism also set the stage for future revolutions in Budapest. During this period, with the support of Queen Maria Theresa, Buda Castle underwent extensive renovations, transforming it into a Baroque palace as a symbol of peace and friendship between the Habsburgs and Hungary. This reconstruction not only enhanced the castle's aesthetic value but also reinforced its importance as a political and cultural center. At the same time, several other buildings within the castle walls, including Matthias Church, were renovated or newly built, ultimately forming the world-famous Budapest Castle district we know today. As the 19th century approached, Hungary's social structure remained feudal, with landlords controlling most of the land and severe economic inequality. And in large cities like Budapest, urbanization and industrialization led to the emergence of new social classes, such as workers and the middle class. The introduction of free market economy theories increased calls for economic reforms. Enlightenment ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity inspired intellectuals and reformers, pushing for social change. Literature and the press became crucial tools for spreading reform ideas, fueling nationalist sentiments and revolutionary consciousness among the people. In this era, two political figures emerged in Hungary, István Székely and Lajos Kossuth. Székely advocated for moderate reforms, believing that gradual changes would avoid social unrest and violence. He focused on promoting economic development through education and infrastructure, advocating cooperation with the Habsburgs to ensure Hungary's stability and prosperity. In contrast, Kossuth called for radical reforms, insisting on swift and comprehensive political and social changes to achieve Hungary's independence and democracy. István Székely was born into an influential Hungarian noble family. His father, Ferenc Székely, was an enlightened nobleman who, in 1802, donated his private collection of Hungarian books, artworks, and artifacts to establish the National Székely Library and the Hungarian National Museum, aiming to preserve and promote Hungarian history and culture. These institutions initially operated together, and in 1847, a neoclassical building for the museum was completed in Pest, becoming one of Hungary's most important historical buildings. The National Székely Library moved to Buda Castle in 1985, continuing to bear the Székely name. Following his father's enlightened tradition, István Székely made significant contributions to Hungary's cultural and scientific development. In 1825, he donated a year's income to build the Hungarian Academy of Sciences on the banks of the Danube in Pest. In 1832, he proposed constructing a permanent bridge to connect Buda and Pest. The Great Flood of the Danube in 1838 drew attention and support for Székely's bridge project. People realized the need for a stable and reliable bridge between Buda and Pest to promote the city's reconstruction and development, rather than relying solely on floating bridges and ferries. In 1840, Székely successfully persuaded the government and private investors to fund the construction of a bridge between Buda Castle and the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in Pest. However, by the time the Székely chain bridge was completed 9 years later, Europe had changed dramatically, with revolutions and wars transforming Budapest, Hungary, and the Habsburg dynasty. In 1848, the February Revolution in Paris sparked a wave of revolutions across Europe, known as the Springtime of the Peoples. On March 13th, a revolution broke out in Vienna, and that night, Hungarian patriotic poet Sándor Petőfi wrote the national song in Budapest, which later considered Hungary's unofficial national anthem. On March 15th, revolutionaries in Pest, led by Petőfi and others, staged a protest against Habsburg autocracy, demanding political reforms. The march began at Pilvax Café in Pest, where reformers read the 12 points, demanding freedom of speech, religious freedom, equal rights, and constitutional governance. More students and citizens joined the march, and they occupied Lander Publishing and Press Company, printing thousands of copies of the 12 points and the national song. In the afternoon, the crowd sang the national anthem in front of the newly completed Hungarian National Museum building. Eventually, the people gathered at the Pest City Hall, where the city council accepted the reform demands. 2 days later, Hungary formed its first elected government under a constitutional monarchy, with Habsburg Ferdinand I as king. 24 days later, the 12 points were enacted by the legislature and approved by Ferdinand I, becoming known as the April Laws. To commemorate this great movement, March 15th was declared Hungary's national holiday. However, the revolution took an uncontrollable turn when Franz Joseph I became the new Habsburg emperor in late 1848. The young emperor arbitrarily annulled the April Laws, sparking a civil war between Austria and Hungary. Budapest was once again engulfed in conflict, with fierce battles for control of Buda Castle. The next year, Russian Empire troops began supporting Austria in May, ultimately leading to the revolution's defeat after 1 year, 6 months, and 19 days. Patriotic poet Petőfi joined the Revolutionary Army and is believed to have died in the last battle of the revolution, the Battle of Sejszvar on July 31, 1849, at the age of 26. This revolution made the Habsburgs realize that Austria could not defeat Hungary alone, and that revolutionary ideas had spread widely among the Hungarian people. This understanding ultimately led to the Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867, separating the Kingdom of Hungary from the Austrian Empire and forming the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary. In June 1867, Franz Joseph I and his wife Empress Elizabeth, also known as Sisi, were crowned King and Queen of Hungary in Matthias Church in Buda, symbolizing the new unity between Hungary and Austria. In 1873, 24 years after the Székely chain bridge was completed, the cities of Óbuda, Buda, and Pest were officially merged at the administrative level, with the ancient names becoming history. Only the vibrant metropolis of Budapest remained, becoming Hungary's administrative, political, economic, trade, and cultural center. With the 19th century Industrial Revolution and the rise of capitalism, a large rural population moved into the city, and Budapest's urban development entered a rapid phase. Many of the city's iconic landmarks were built during this period, reflecting the rapid urbanization and modernization of the time. Through large-scale urban construction projects, Budapest successfully transitioned from a traditional Central European city to a modern European metropolis. City Park, Budapest's largest park, was established in the mid-19th century and features several important attractions, such as the Székely Thermal Bath, Budapest Zoo, and Vajdahunyad Castle, providing essential leisure and entertainment space for residents and enhancing the quality of urban life. Andrássy Avenue, one of Budapest's most famous streets, was built between 1872 and 1885, connecting Erzsébet Square in the city center with City Park, lined with numerous revival-style buildings, including the Hungarian State Opera House and other cultural institutions. The avenue also features elegant cafes, restaurants, and embassies. To commemorate the millennium of Hungary's founding in 1896, Budapest experienced a construction boom. The main celebration venue was set in City Park, where the Millennium Monument was erected at the entrance connected to Andrássy Avenue. Hero Square was completed in 1896, featuring statues of important figures in Hungarian history, flanked by the Museum of Fine Arts and the Hall of Art. To facilitate access to City Park, Hungary built the Millennium Underground Railway beneath Andrássy Avenue. The railway spans 3.7 kilometers with 11 stations and was constructed by Siemens using the most advanced equipment and technology of the time, completed in less than 2 years. On May 2, 1896, Emperor Franz Joseph I inaugurated the Millennium Underground Railway, which became the second subway in the world after London and the first on the European continent. Today, both Andrássy Avenue and the Millennium Underground Railway are listed as World Heritage Sites by United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Meanwhile, in the Castle District on the opposite bank of the Danube, a new Romanesque revival-style viewing platform called Fisherman's Bastion was built near Matthias Church. Named after the medieval fishermen's guild responsible for defending this section of the city walls, Fisherman's Bastion features numerous stairways and walkways, with 7 towers symbolizing the 7 Magyar tribes that settled in the Carpathian Basin in 896. Today, Fisherman's Bastion is a must-visit destination for tourists due to its unique architectural style and excellent vantage point. Its romantic atmosphere and beautiful scenery also make it a popular gathering place for young people and couples. The peak of Budapest's urban development in the mid-19th century was the Hungarian Parliament building. In 1880, the Hungarian Parliament decided to build a new parliament building on the banks of the Danube in Pest to symbolize national sovereignty. Hungarian architect Imre Steindl's design was selected from an international competition, featuring Gothic revival style inspired by the British Houses of Parliament. The Hungarian Parliament building was completed in 1896 to celebrate the millennium of Hungary's founding. Approximately 100,000 people participated in its construction, using 40 million bricks, 500,000 precious stones, and 40 kilograms of gold. Since its completion, the Parliament building has symbolized Hungary's national identity and pride. Its nighttime illumination provides a stunning visual impact, making the building a focal point of Budapest's skyline. As the early 20th century dawned, Budapest, one of the capitals of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, had grown into one of the most prominent cities on the European continent. Thanks to Hungary's Equal Rights Act of 1867, many Jews were attracted to the city. According to the 1910 census, Budapest had approximately 203,000 Jews, making up 23.6% of the total population. This earned Budapest the nicknames Jewish Mecca and Judapest. Budapest's Jewish community was concentrated in the 7th district. This area was not only a hub for Jewish life and commerce, but also a center for cultural and religious activities. The community had numerous Jewish schools, cultural centers, and religious institutions that supported daily life and cultural heritage. One of the district's key landmarks is the Dohány Street Synagogue, one of the largest synagogues in Europe and the second largest in the world. It served as a place of worship and a center for community gatherings and cultural events. Many Jews in Budapest were engaged in commerce, finance, industry, and professional services. They played a significant role in the city's economic development as successful entrepreneurs, bankers, and professionals. The prosperity of the Jewish community was evident not only in economic terms but also in education and culture. They established schools and cultural institutions that contributed to the city's cultural diversity and educational progress. Then World War I erupted. During the war, many Budapest citizens, including Jews, joined the European battlefields as soldiers of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Budapest faced severe economic and social pressures, with resource shortages, inflation, and high unemployment making life difficult. Industrial production nearly came to a halt, and social unrest intensified. In 1918, the Austro-Hungarian Empire dissolved following the end of the war, and Hungary declared independence, making Budapest the new capital. As a representative of the defeated Austro-Hungarian Empire, the newly formed Hungary signed the Treaty of Trianon at the Palace of Versailles in France in 1920. Under the treaty, Hungary lost 72% of its territory and 64% of its population, becoming a landlocked country. Over a third of ethnic Hungarians were placed in newly formed states like Romania, Serbia, and Croatia, creating significant ethnic conflicts and tensions. The Treaty of Trianon caused major social and economic changes in Hungary. While most of Hungary's pre-war industry was concentrated around Budapest, the treaty left Hungary with 51% of its industrial workforce, 56% of its industry, 82% of its heavy industry, and 80% of its banking sector. However, it lost 84% of its timber resources, 83% of its iron ore resources, and 43% of its arable land. With the loss of significant territory and population, Budapest businesses lost vital markets and resources, struggling to maintain industrial production and commercial prosperity. Inflation, economic collapse, and rising unemployment plagued the city. The expansion plans for the city as the imperial capital were abruptly halted, and the city's role and functions had to be rethought and adjusted. Between the two world wars, Hungary faced tremendous challenges and changes. Despite relative political stability, economic recovery was slow and fraught with difficulties, and social life was filled with uncertainty and tension. The Great Depression of 1929 caused world food prices to plummet, further collapsing Hungary's economy. By 1933, about 18% of Budapest's residents lived in poverty, and the unemployment rate soared to 36%. The Treaty of Trianon not only had long-term economic impacts on Hungary, but was also seen as a national humiliation, sowing seeds of revenge that would later contribute to World War II. At the outset of World War II, Hungary tried to remain neutral. However, due to the territorial losses from the Treaty of Trianon, the Hungarian government hoped to recover lost lands by cooperating with the Axis powers. As Germany's influence grew, Hungary gradually leaned towards supporting the Axis. On November 20, 1940, Hungary officially joined the Axis alliance, allying with Nazi Germany, Italy, and Japan. This move led Hungary to fight alongside the Axis powers in hopes of regaining territories lost under the Treaty of Trianon. Despite collaborating with the Axis, Hungarian Jews initially enjoyed relative freedom and safety at the beginning of World War II. The Jewish community in Budapest maintained a semblance of normalcy, with many continuing their business and cultural activities. However, in March 1944, after discovering that the Hungarian government had secretly contacted the Allies, Nazi Germany launched Operation Margarethi and occupied Hungary, leading to the mass murder of Jews. In October, the Arrow Cross Party, supported by Nazi Germany, staged a coup and intensified the persecution of Jews. Thousands of Jews were executed along the banks of the Danube in Budapest, their bodies thrown into the river. To commemorate these innocent victims, Budapest erected the Shoes on the Danube Bank Memorial, symbolized by a row of iron shoes representing Jews forced to remove their shoes before being shot. In 1944, Budapest suffered Allied air raids, causing significant destruction to parts of the city. By the end of the year, Soviet troops reached Budapest and began a siege. The city was heavily damaged during the attacks by Soviet and Romanian forces and the defense by German and Hungarian troops. About 80% of the city, including historic buildings like the Hungarian Parliament Building and Buda Castle, was destroyed or damaged, and all 7 bridges over the Danube were blown up by German forces, resulting in over 38,000 civilian deaths. After the Soviet Red Army captured Hungary from Nazi Germany, Hungary joined the socialist camp. In 1949, the People's Republic of Hungary was established, and the socialist government undertook a series of actions to rebuild Buda Castle with contemporary features. The new government viewed Buda Castle as a symbol of the old regime and opted for a modern reconstruction rather than a simple restoration. In the 1950s, the palace interior was completely gutted, with significant exterior details removed and simplified. A modernist dome was designed in 1961, and the exterior reconstruction was completed in 1966, though the interior spaces were not finished until the 1980s. The rebuilt Buda Castle housed 3 museums and the National Székhenyi Library, transforming it from a symbol of the old regime into a cultural icon of the new socialist state. On October 23, 1956, the Hungarian people held large-scale peaceful demonstrations in Budapest, demanding democratic reforms. Student representatives entered the Magyar radio building to broadcast their 16 political and economic reform demands but were detained by security, preventing the broadcast. Protesters called for the appointment of Imre Nagy as prime minister. Nagy was a reformist politician who had served as prime minister from 1953 to 1955 and was widely supported for his moderate reform policies. As the demonstrations rapidly spread, workers and citizens nationwide joined the protests, creating immense political pressure. The Central Committee of the Hungarian Working People's Party, bowing to public pressure, appointed Imre Nagy as prime minister that evening. This anti-Soviet uprising lasted from October 23 to November 11. When Nagy announced that Hungary would withdraw from the Warsaw Pact and become a neutral country, the Soviet Union sent tanks and troops to suppress the uprising, resulting in over 3,000 deaths. More than a quarter of Hungary's population fled the country, most heading to neutral Austria. Imre Nagy was arrested after the failed revolution and sent to Romania. In 1958, he was returned to Budapest for a secret trial, found guilty, and executed by hanging in June. The trial and execution were kept secret until after his death. From the 1960s to the late 1980s, Hungary was often humorously referred to as the happiest Baroque in the Eastern Bloc. Budapest's wartime damage was finally repaired, and in 1964, the last rebuilt bridge, the Elizabeth Bridge, was completed. In the early 1970s, the Budapest Metro's M2 line opened, followed by the M3 line in 1976. In 1987, Buda Castle and the banks of the Danube were designated UNESCO World Heritage Sites. In 1989, during the political changes in Eastern Europe, the Hungarian government rehabilitated Imre Nagy and restored his honor. His remains were reburied with respect and commemoration, with over 200,000 Budapest citizens gathering at Heroes Square to honor this national hero. The rehabilitation and reburial of Imre Nagy symbolized the end of Hungary's communist regime, marking the beginning of Hungary's transition to a multi-party democratic system. As the capital, Budapest not only restored its historical buildings but also quickly developed into a vibrant cultural and economic center, attracting many tourists and foreign investments. The city's infrastructure was modernized, with improvements in public transportation, education, and healthcare systems. Today, Budapest retains its rich historical heritage while showcasing the charm of a modern city, making it a major European tourist destination and business hub.